Peace, peace. We back, Islam. Let's continue. We're gonna look at two videos real quick, short videos, like a minute a piece. And we're gonna look at a few more misunderstandings, we're gonna call it that. And we're gonna look up some more history, so let's continue.
Of your royal family, so I'll give you some of our royal background. We are from the Nubian Kushite line, so I'm a Nubian Kushite from the Kush throne. Our family region covers the south of Libya, the southern part of Sudan, and the northern part of Sudan, the southern part of Egypt. But that is the home region of the throne. It's not the throne itself. The throne itself of Kush covered all of the African continent, into the Americas, into India. It's a throne whose forefather was Nimrod. Nimrod was the son of Cush. Cush was the son of Ham. Nimrod's daughter was Sheba the First. And from Sheba the First, all the pharaohs and the kings and queens of our ancient empire became. From those empires, with the expansion of it formed more and more kingdoms and settlements throughout Africa. From there, you have the ancient Nok, the Yorubas, the Hausas, the Fulanis, forming the kingdoms covering Nigeria and those regions. So you're a direct descendant of the ancient line of kingdoms, and the only kingdom line that has never been broken.
Okay.
So Mr. Desmond King from Food for the Poor.
Before we look at that one right there, you see what she said, right? She said, all of Africa, on to America, across the Atlantic, the extent of her empire. And she's Her Imperial Majesty, Regina Shabai, Queen of Sheba, today. She tell you what the throne or the seat at, which is in modern day southern Egypt, all of Sudan, which is Kush, and Libya, parts of Libya. But the extent of the empire stretched all the way throughout Africa. The eastern parts, this is what we show you in the last video, the pink part, 20 degrees latitude north and south of the equator. And plenty more lands because we're dealing with the Moorish Empire. So she just been telling you about one kingdom, one particular line, and that was a huge one. So basically, same thing we were saying in the last video about all those kings that they call the kings of West Africa, Mali and Songhay, and ancient Abyssinia, Kush, right? And I have tell you that even always overseas kingdoms when you come with empires and dominions, especially with Moors. But they only show you the Portuguese and the French and the English and the overseas provinces and holdings. And they cut yours off. So but then again, we see people all the time telling us, hey brother, honor your African ancestry. If they coming like that, they coming under Rome. If they coming like her, that's how they should come to them over here. Tell them about the empire. That's great here. Because you're trying to take away one side and subscribe them to something that displaced them. So if you want to explain anything to these people, to us about South Africa, you better be coming in the terms of empire. She used the term Africa as a place name, just like we do as Moors. The continent of Africa. But these so many different tribes and nations and empires and domains, those things got names too. And you can keep trying to ignore those names and those terms if you want. That's just on you. and we called the Morris, and she agreed. So we showing you right here some more. See, we got them Abatala background. The third one on. It's another video we're gonna watch real quick before we get into this.
And Mr. King, these are members of my executive body. We've been reaching out for some time to Food for the Poor to try and get some assistance for persons across not only Akompong but other maroon districts who are in dire need of housing and assistance. Let me ask you, if for example in Akompong I'm looking at addressing the needs in two ways. There are people who already have their plots and would want to have their units on their plots, right? But there's an area that we're looking at that we could do maybe 35 to 50 units.
We can work. I can look at it and see it looks like a reasonable size piece of property right there.
The vision there is whole heap of things in them spaces. So. Mr. Desmond King from Food for...
Okay. So we see what I've been called right there. That's what you call moral science. Today we call that governing. We see that on TV. We think that's a certain group of people. We think that's called white supremacy. We think where they did this now is what they gonna call you a sovereign citizen, and then you gonna see that on the news, and then you gonna be joining right in on the demonization of the people who being demonized here. But you see those brothers right there, those Moors, they know they already under treaty, they understand that. And they ain't getting propaganda pushed against them. So, and it don't look shocking to them, it look like something, like, oh look, they free. To you, in your mind. Like you got Moors here who doing the same thing on different levels and trying to tell y'all that's what we can do. That's what we got rights to do. You can do this. This ain't no crime. But then you got a whole force of people who foreign to you telling you another thing and you going with that. They even talking about other towns and they way more advanced than us. To our eyes, they looking like, oh, that's a poor town. They by themselves there, so they gotta govern it, and they coming from like a bottom part, try to rise up. But the fact that they dealing with government and governing themselves, and that mind state is already a better start. So they going back to Morocco in their minds. It shouldn't be in a few years down the line, should be ambassador of Moral Science Temple, number such and such, meets ambassador of Maroon Kingdom, such and such, such. That's how it should be. All across this continent and planet eventually. But start locally, start in your household, realize that's your people. And don't put nothing outside their house over to what's in their house, the people in their house. Start right there. So we can continue. So you got this character again. Everybody tell you it's one of the same characters. That's why I tell you these. Don't worry about these people. Don't reply to them and nothing like that. Don't go back and forth with them because they gotta be bots, which is just whole farms of people, college students sitting in rooms, attacking, sending out messages and stuff like that in these groups. He definitely one of them. Ain't nobody got that much time in the day unless they getting paid. They say he tell her Mardi Gras Indians are Africans honoring the Native Americans who helped them during the slavery days. So that's his mind state, and people think like this. He will really think that that's all you is. And they say it with like, that's what this is, my guy. Tell you this. You don't know yourself. I gotta teach you and tell you, right? These weird looking people who weird as hell today. Like, you don't see no people looking like that even today walking down the street. You live in Morocco. You live amongst your own. You don't live among these people. But that's what they claim, that the only reason you got any aspect of American culture or custom in you, and American quote unquote, as in what they say that is, is because of this type of shit. That way they think happen. When the people who they calling us, we don't see these people. If we walk past somewhere like this, if they ain't got no feathers in their head, that's just a Mexican. Let's be real. To us, what's up, migo? And keep walking. If they put feathers in their head, you might trick a lot of us, but you ain't gonna trick no more. We gonna think you plain dress up. You a Mexican with feathers in your head, my guy. Ain't nothing special about that, because these terms don't get us with that. Most of us. All these terms, Africans, Native Americans, Indians, these terms, these Hollywood terms, us. But that's how people think, and if you don't know thyself, that's affect a lot of our thinking, because we can see in the money, say, we are those native descendants of that many Asians helped us. Exactly. Where these people at? The people who we see that look like them, phenotypically, is the people who we call Mexicans. We know where they come from, and they call themselves that. Where is the Native Americans? We go to middle of Arizona to one of them casinos or whatever, but most of us in the South, we down here in Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, Texas. We don't see these people. You see, of course, and don't know nothing. Went to Indian schools out there. Those people, Indian schools created by United States, not by quote unquote Indians, Rome. So you see, because of these type of mind states, then you got your own people who, for whatever reason, they need you to be from Africa with them. If they African American, you gotta be one too for whatever reason. So they'll get on their side, the strangers, people who ain't of their nation, against you, because they all agree. He probably like this. He's saying, like, oh, he get the so-called, what they call us, wabble, whatever that means, prove that they are Aboriginal Americans. So basically, the word wabble, that's what he calling people who he believes is African, by calling himself American erroneously. But in his mind, a term called Aboriginal American that he got in his subconscious, and in his subconscious, that's these people, not you. That's how Rome think. That's how he think, and that's why he can't deal with somebody like me, because I say, oh no, I ain't that. I ain't even that. I been before that, and I some more. And those people over there where you think you from, is Moors. And they don't like that neither, and they will make 5 hour videos about Moors, because we're not teach them about that shit. Just like we show you at the beginning of that video, she gave you the whole timeline of Moabites, the Canaanites, the ancient Kush. Just like she gave you basically chapter 47 in another form, Moorish Empire. And we know this, she know this, because nobles know this. We know what treaties is, we know what history, real history is. We know line of bloodline of kings. And shit ain't hidden. You can go to Wikipedia and read about this shit. But you got again, that's why we don't worry about the people on the ground. They use terms like these terms, they use the terms wrong you're giving them. Then you see, because the costume made in Marduk grass or carnival, at least he know that. At least he knows something. That shows him carnival in West and East Africa, 1,000 miles away. In another video, I say that too. I say I don't see that in Africa, but I'm glad he find them for me. And then you got Cape Verde. When you got Cape Verde in the west coast of Africa, you might as well say you still in America, because our influence really been there. We ain't try to go deep into the interior. We deal with the Moors who already on the coast. We set up our shit on the coast. Why are we gonna set up in the interior? We buying and selling. we set up coastal ports. We bring products in from the interior and we sell it on the coast to other parts of the Moors and other parts of the world. So the coastal ports on Africa side and the coastal side on America and the Atlantic gonna be basically one kingdom, or empire, same people. That's why they always tell you come from West Africa. But yeah, thanks for showing me about our international connection that we already know we got. It still don't mean they come from there. It's an international connection. And they'll do shit like this. They'll go post Carnival Africa, let me go rebut my own brother about him being a part of this side. Let me go rebut him, so they gonna go post questions like this. Knowing that 9 times out of 10 you will get somebody who write on the internet that phrase and give their opinion about that phrase, so Google gonna pick it up. And they're gonna use the first source, whoever that is, carnivalland.net, and they're gonna post that as that's the gospel. No research, none of his own words. Now, teacher used to tell us, write it in your own words. And then another thing they do, they'll, damn well he just, like saying, Mark Johnson. That's my name, Mark Johnson from New Jersey. He don't embrace none of that. But he think by changing it to Kazembe, connect him back to his ancestor. That's an illusion, because you're using the same letters, Latin, Phoenician, Moorish letters, Moabite letters, to make any type of way you want to put the letters. Mark Johnson and Kazembe Terhune both use these letters in Moorish origin. So you ain't doing nothing different. You just using illusions. Again, these things I supposed to make that sound African, Kazembe. I probably gonna find plenty of words in South America that we were doing these videos that if I change my name to that, they'll think I changed my name to African name. So in the end of this, we're gonna read some stuff that gonna show you how even in the 1800s, a lot of us had know Africa just mean away from Rome, basically. So anyway, in South America, they couldn't get away from the United States. They been calling that Africa back then, us and Europeans. Argentina and all those places, we're gonna show you that in a minute. He on it. And I changed his profile pic and everything. He stole like Mark Johnson from New Jersey to me. Most likely us, because most of these people over here who only know English, who know so much about Africa, your African history. And it should come from the 90s. They'd be like, God damn, these people, they didn't see all the new findings we get since the time. I've been around now. And a lot of, I've been in the era where we've been getting findings. Like stuff that our elders ain't even never teaching about. We come into the game of knowledge, looking for knowledge ourselves. We finding books. Because we got technology compared to Sorry about that. I have to take that call. Let's continue. So now he on this rebut you mission. So he basically saying that you is the African tobacco statue. Because some other people is the American. So he find one that he can find, go through up the thousands of these pictures and find the lightest one he can find, even though these ones still look like me, my aunt and my mother's. He gonna find the lightest one he can find against the darkest one he's find. So that again, they showing you subconscious thinking. Dark skin, they assuming because somebody's skin dark that they belong over there. That's their motherland, and that's where they need to follow them in their history. He said they're galvanizing people. They're galvanizing black slaves in their mind. Whether they know that or not, they're galvanizing them, and next thing you know, you go end up in some place that ain't even gonna be Africa. You're gonna be someplace far, picking pineapples. That's what you're gonna be if you let these people galvanize you in your mind. It's been going on for a long time, and the Jesuits not teach Moors how to do it to each other. He is an example of this. The great tobacco trade, tobacco at those times that caused the creation of these came from Virginia. So at that time, Virginia, been Africa, especially to the Englishman, when he first come, the wilderness of Africa. That's how you got a Guinea, Virginia, and Virginia to this day, and a Guyana, and plenty other terms that probably coincide with what we perceive to be Africa. And basically people who look like this all over Virginia to this day. So you just calling these Moors Africans, like some Roman would do. And again, that's why you see me say black and white Romans, because they're dealing with a mentality, not an actual. They don't live in the city of Rome today, but you gotta know your history, and you can see what the same spirits that been around 1,000 years ago are the same spirits around you today. Then he posts us a Mauritanian delegate taking part in the street parade. So I was like, yeah, that's dope. You got Mauritanians over who look like them same people coming to take a part in this. Showing you. At least they got the sense to know they ancient Mauritanians still using the old names instead of some of these new shit. Ain't no moving them. They moored. They moored to the soil. Ain't no moving them, like the old lady on the porch. No matter if gentrification go around, you ain't moving that old lady. She be right in the middle, y'all. Europeans. Still selling candy. She ain't even know every boy that get pushed out to the neighborhood. She moored. We talk about this, we show you this custom on the walls and of the pyramids, the sun and moon pyramids. Show you the same custom on those walls. And you can see in this ancient Moorish American customs, but you can see the fact that it got the whole empire, and it showing you how ancient people was and how much you carry your custom throughout time. It got so much biblical aspects in this, and they talking about when you read about the stuff in the biblical stuff, you will see the shit in modern times in these people customs, showing you that they is the people that you reading about in them damn texts that been around 1,000 years doing that. The same thing we see all across. We were looking at with the caboclos. We'll talk about that later, some more. And he forced the Nigeria one and said, well, thank you. All right, thanks. I've been looking for that. And the reason why he posting them is saying that these people is African slaves who bring the custom from Nigeria to here. That's what he was forcing that for against the other guy. They going back and forth and they looking. It's the Cleveland Young guy. And he always the same thing. He always, people like Cleveland Young, they always talking about who they is, who they're is, not who Yahweh Pablo is. Cleveland Young don't never post about who Yahweh Pablo is. No post. And they using this just him, but he's just different spirits. A bunch of him in there, and a bunch of Yahweh Pablos in there, and a bunch of Kazembe Tehunes in there. And I see a couple of Kazembes. You know, he the dude who born and raised here, but been captivated into Africanism. It's like Europeans who they anglicize things. Everything got to come from their point of view. So, and yeah, people be saying we moralize things, but we on paper we got evidence of our presence everywhere. We ain't just saying that because somebody's skin dog got us in that. We can trace them. We can trace the line. And the empires and the kingdoms, and that's history, and that happened. Ain't nothing that ain't like we just making up. Just that most more ain't got time to sit there and explain all that shit to you. You know how many videos that I make explaining the same thing. But the problem is, the thing is about us and them, the difference is that he talk about himself, who he is here, and how his national. He thought he said he showing you more New Orleans. He ain't posting the Nigerian picture. So Pablo don't never talk about Pablo and his people. He always talking about Cleveland Young and what Cleveland Young is and who he gotta be and where he from. Also, Kazembe, we don't know who he from or who he is because he don't talk about himself neither. He always talking about Wobbles, who he calling Cleveland Young. So Cleveland Young is the only one who's saying we when he talk about make his posts. The rest of these people saying y'all, never using the term we. So you gotta watch them type of people. They'd be the agents. Cause they run from me, cause I be the first one to say, okay, when you done talk about yourself, then tell me about you. When you done talk about me, then tell me about you. Cause you saying you and y'all and they too much for me. You ain't saying we. So that means you ain't gonna, if you ain't saying we, then I ain't gonna stop you from saying something that's disrespectful or ignorant. Cause you talking about yourself, you ain't gonna say nothing ignorant about you on your own. But when you start to say y'all and that, you'll say anything. Cause now you already separate yourself from the other person that you talking about. See, when it wabble, in this whole post, you don't know who he is. I assume he born and raised American because most of them who speak like this, most people in Africa they don't even got this way of thinking. A lot of them, like we saw at the beginning, know that they've been all over the world running and shit. And they ain't got no origin like origin stories as like the Christians are. Goddamn, what your boy name is. That's how much I self-consciously gotta get rid of that boy. You know what I'm talking about, the evolution. Man been a fish and then became an ape and became walking around in the middle of Africa and then spread out throughout the world. We don't die in our origin story. We got plenty of other origin stories that we take for account than that. Any scientific and even the biblical story. The fact that Christians even believe that is dishonor to the Lord and Savior, because he rebut that Jesus himself rebut your boy when your boy would try to tell him about us man coming from fish, and then being from protoplast to fish, into ape to man to beast to man. Jesus said, when you remember being the iron fish, my guy, you got memories of fish, cause man never forget. So you should have memories of that and being protoplasm. So he had to teach that boy, know everybody love all those things, protoplasm, beast, man, cherubim, all these things live on all these frequencies. A man live on his own frequency. Protoplasm live on his own frequency. Birds live on their own frequency. Birds and apes don't live on the same frequency. So ape and man don't live on the same frequency. So that's why he explained that to him, and they still expound that evolution theory and call themselves Christians. So they don't even know that this man I rebut that their Lord and Savior, right? Because the more he one of the many prophets. But again, coming with this mind state again, at the end of the day, the conversation always still back there. Well, scientifically, we all came up from Africa, so everything you're saying, you still eventually came out of Africa. But you going with Darwin? will you put faith in Darwin? That's the gospel, because you ain't scientifically figured that shit out. Ain't none of us going digging up grounds looking for bones, putting the science together like Darwin did it. He did that, and plenty more Andalusians, Persians throughout time. The origin of man always been discussed, and Darwin ain't much been the first one to come with that theory. Like I say, biblical times, your boy Arabo been telling Jesus when they been walking about that same theory. So Darwin still left from that. Ain't even did all that born, all that research and all that. And what is used as same thing. He said that and that. Man start from a thought. He mixing the truth with the falsehood. And then you have to question, you remember being you been ape in protoplasm? So we're gonna show them about this too. Because even though he might be right, he might do have some aspects of this still, because you can cultivate tobacco. You can go take tobacco seeds any place on the earth and cultivate tobacco. So of course, but that I mean, just because we seeing these, basically ain't now I'm from Virginia is what we're supposed to believe if we too dark for his liking. So you saying that's that inner racism that they got to deal with themselves. These people, they gonna displace the dark skinned people. I can tell you that, and that's why I focus on that, because all these Moors, all these people, these and these, on both sides of us too. So we're gonna show them something. We're gonna see. Hey, you got your boy Napoleon. We can see what's going on in these eras, and we're gonna deal with this. And here we see Almoravid, which is the Moabite. You see, it's still going with the same terms. Almoravid. And we just show you in another video the coins, the money system. Money at that time we call them the Moravides, which come from these people's name. Show you the stand of your empire. Portugal, Spain, England, Britain, and all these other kingdoms of Europe been using the Moabit. So if they got these overseas kingdoms and they so all over the place, sailing everywhere, dominating, they best believe you already doing that and been doing that. And they just inheriting it through amalgamation, through us falling off and stuff like that, and through time and our lack of knowledge of knowing who we is and stuff like that. They saying turn into African now. The detail of the story disappear because you using ambiguous terms, and The same thing, like I said earlier, a lot of the stuff we've been getting, it's supposed to be the knowledge of self for us and our people are dark complex in North America, been the same stuff throughout time. It ain't never advanced itself. Even though technology advanced, we got more access to resources than ever before. We got more ways to get these things. And us kicking knowledge back and forth, we should advance because you got different minds, different brains from different places. Two minds better than one. So the same way the car advance because we got more ideas coming and all right, put this to the car. We got this person ID, we add that to the car. We got airbags now because some way come with that ID. Everything advanced. History should, the way we teach history, because history don't change. What happened yesterday happened. But the way we advance, the way we explain these things should advance. It shouldn't be the same memes that we get every February that we've been getting since '95. And the elders don't want to deal with that for whatever reason. But you should go to the youngsters because they more savvy and they can find things. So you got Abu Bakr ibn Umar ibn Ibrahim ibn Turgut, son of Abraham, son of Turgut, mother and father, and his name and grandfather. All those probably might be his grandfathers, but some names you can put mother and father in it. They're from the Turgut clan. So father, grandfather, and great grandfather, and name coming in the same names. His brothers was Yahya ibn Umar al-Lamtumi, and you already know you got the god Yahya and the Taneo culture. Got the god Yahya and Yahya El and the Taneo gods. They're talking about all the Moorish kings, the same kings who Spain tell them to pay me the same amount that you used to pay the ancient kings, like him, on both sides. And some more European situation where we see you exist there, already there. Like this more, he been the king of all of Guinea. To the Portuguese, they call him the king of all of Guinea. Because you can see he battles between different groups of Moors. And this will lead up to the Spain, Castile, and Leon, which became Spain and Portugal. Getting more closer and closer over here. In the 1300s, when they first off even heading on land on the American coast. And some of the wars they have are in the sea. See, I had to translate this from Wikipedia because they don't even got an English version of this page, of this person. And there's another example. I showed one example in the past video about this, how they don't even got English versions of some of these people. And that's great, they ain't even going to tell you that, but they got so much to tell you about your African ancestry. That's been a king of all Guinea. Both sides of that thing, you see two anchors. Both sides of the Atlantic. Moors had that title. They've been calling that sea, the Atlantic. You putting their name over the Atlantic, like these my seas. Anything that touch these waters, mine. Both side of it. So they ain't teaching you that in your African ancestry. They playing you. They gonna take one side. They gonna take the American side. They on America telling you that. They trying to take the American side of your empire. So he was the Admiral of Castile from 1314 to his death. Admiral of Castile now. So he ran shit in Andalusia too. So you seen this how we starting to lose kingdoms up there too, because of these battles between Moors. Isabel ain't even around yet. This 100 years before her. They ain't even called Spain. It's still Andalusia at this time. This is the Kingdom of Castile, and he's the admiral. He participated in the war against the Emirate of Granada in 1316 and led a blockade in 1326, during which he defeated the Granadian marinade fleet. In 1333, he participated in the defense of Gibraltar against the Marinid Granadian siege. But Castile was defeated, and he signed the 1334 treaty that formalized the concessions of a time, which probably been on the American coast. See what you're saying? So Spain and Portugal and all them, these been Moors back in the day who already had to do treaties with each other because of the battles before 1490, way before 1400s. You already had Castile and Leon and these places dealing with Africa and America. By the time you get to the 1490s, they already had records of the old stuff that they had. So they were coming back and re-registering, calling them new names. But they ain't got no name for them in this story because these Moors, these Moors who got their own names and shit written in old Arabic and different languages that we had that they didn't even know. These modern day type Spaniards. He died in a naval battle against the Marinid fleet Abu al-Hassan Ali on the Straits of Gibraltar. But even both sides of the Atlantic stories, tons of these stories that they don't ever teach you about. Ain't nothing happened to you when they give you that history. The Native American history and the African history is all the true history, which is the Moorish history, where you can find what was going on in the 1200s, the 1100s, the 1000s, and the BC, all the way back. In America, you can find those records under the Moorish, in the library of the Moorish sections, especially in Africa, because we probably most likely record our own books and then get to them like they get to them over here in some of the mountain areas, in these areas that they don't, Europeans hardly get into. In Africa, they stole those areas, and they still got these old ass libraries with these old books. We might still have some stuff and records in there about it, but at the end of the day, they don't never talk about nothing in America or Africa for that matter before 1441, when they did the little the first so-called trade in African slaves, or they call it the first trade. But even right here, you see, you're gonna be captives on both sides of this war right here. So you're already going on amongst you. They just perpetual because amalgamated Moors who fathers were a part of these wars gonna continue what's going on. They're gonna continue because they nobles. So right here, this one of the oldest pictures showing the natives of America, according to Spain. You can see in the back. Always you. This who, in the record books, this the Medina Sidonia vassals of Guinea in Africa. That's what they call it in record books. But this painting, they know this means the original people who Columbus showed been here to Isabel, which he called people of Al Hind, because they've been using that term, just like Moors been using that term. They didn't even have no way that mean, but they define it as indigenous, indigena. When they figure out what that means, they start calling the West Indies. But at this time, it was just India. Just like the Portuguese would call it one word, India. Because on our map, we had Al Hind, and they going all the way across on both sides. You ain't even know East and West Al Hind. So you see right here, allegorical. That's why I always say, we know his mentality is the Roman mentality. They always at war with the Moors, and Moors is represented as dark-skinned people. And you see they got the four heads. The four heads means rulers of the world. The state empire is the old world where they rule the world. On four heads, north, south, east, and west. And it's still like that today. So Rome, whenever they at, and they on the land of Moors, they gotta be the blacks who gotta be conquered and given the gospel. Because it's a sand wall. You don't see the wall going on. Because it ain't really in complexion. You look at it as white supremacy. But you'll never see the force unless you go look into the history of the wars between Moors and Christians. And we did show you Genefre, Alfonso Joffre Tenorio, been the king of Africa at that time, the Guinea. And that's both sides of it. And Abu al-Hassan Ali, been king of Grenada. And all these been dark-skinned people. So if you look at it like that, like race, then you will be missing the points. But the forehead represent the four corners, or the four quadrants of the world. And you can see, it ain't matter what part of the world Moors been at, they represented as dark-skinned people in history books. So today we do that. We use terms like African. We use the same people like them. We use Roman terms. And we telling you what these people call themselves. And people still don't want to get it. So you see, Christianity by Stowe Morris. You had people over the Byzantine Empire. You had Moors like this over different parts and sections. And they say all these ones like this is Saint Maurice. But again, I ain't never seen the ones that look like this one here. All the boy face look different. Completely different. So you see the battle between Moors and Christians for castles and forts. And a lot of those stories happen on this land. And they get erased because of propaganda. But again, they shouldn't be fighting Moors for castles. These people right here coming under the African spell because they're supposed to be somewhere in the jungles of the Congo. Even though they might be kings, they'll tell you that. Yeah, you been kings over there though. They want your ass over there. What do you think if you've been a slave or not over there? They'd be like, you were kings and queens, yeah, over there. To get you out their face, out their way, because they want the castle. But what we're telling you is that they taking your castle in Europe, man, and they ain't telling their children that they come from Africa. They ain't gonna tell their children that they take their grandfather's castle. So we got Knights over Egypt, the Jones girls. So they call them the Jones girls. So, they probably not create all this propaganda. They want to say, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do this. You're going to wear this. You're going to name your groups this. This is going to sell. And they're going to name the album this. So the Jones girls been the girls who worked at the Jones orphanage or plantation. Equimienda. Right? And at the end of the day, they don't pass no wealth down. Next thing you know, they got a VH1 story about how they get their money taken from the company, end up on drugs, all types of crazy stories that we get from these old celebrities. Seem like none of them got no goddamn success stories. That Ron really doesn't, but when you don't know yourself, we allow Ron to do these things. Because even if Ron used you at the beginning, shit, at some point you gotta be able to use what you get out of that and do for yourself. At the end of the day, you have to do for yourself one day. Hey, boy, Master P, record her shit and make copies and sell that shit out the trunk of his car before going to these people to do my publishing, my distribution. But at the same time, they're doing us a guarantee. They calling them black and proud, black exploitation films and all that going on at this era. It's bringing the black thing more and more because people ain't even calling themselves that before the 70s and shit. So the record company that licensed it, that got it licensed even to this day, the Sony Music, the Latin, more Great Songs International. So the whole time they publishing, they being the Moors, the owners, while the artists is the African and the blacks. That's what they're gonna teach them every February, every Negro week in February. So at the same time, the big dogs who write the checks, they know who they is, and they ain't gonna never mention that to these women, because that means they gonna figure out who they is, and they gonna realize that next they need their own publishing, and they could be the BMI. It could be their own BMI. They could use the money, whatever funds that they get, to fund their own shit. They gonna realize that. But they gonna use that just like Motown Records. They know that the artists are Moors, but then they gonna write songs for them that say something like, I'm black and I'm proud. They're gonna write those songs for these artists. At the same time, a record company called Motown Records. So again, just basically showing you like, man, he getting the idea of ways like the people might not have nefarious reasons to be making stuff like this. But this is blatant displacement. Basically saying the ones who dark skin like him, who in Virginia, don't got no stake, our history, our culture, connected to that land. They are not more to the soil there. And that gonna be perpetual. That gonna be for them and their children, no matter how the laws. Because maximum law is based off first in line, first in time is first in line. Just like granny of the house, she the elder, so she got the highest rights, and she got the biggest authority. That goes the same way in law. Those principles. That's how the law see it. So those sleight of hand trickery, the number one thing is to send you some way away, and then bring you after somebody else. Because legally, not if both parties who setting out the claim, if both of them going with that same historical timeline, then yeah, okay, you come here after two groups of people, not just one. And to make matter worse, other nations bring you here. That's what he think and believe. And again, that the way they think and the way they talk is what it is, because he ain't lying. I mean, yeah, somebody from that continent was dragged here and brought here against their will. People still getting dragged here and brought here against their will now. Behind the scenes, you don't know about. From South America, especially from the islands, they call them coyotes and stuff like that. Again, they bring children all across the borders and shit, different places, selling them. So that means that's true, yeah. But that ain't true for everybody. So you just gonna leave the blanket statement out there. So again, it get that 9-9 back to red. So now, who is the people who get brought here, or the people who dark skin? So now we gotta bring out the brown people back again. You see how that go? They say, oh no, I ain't that dark, so I from here. So now you got people doing that now. That's why these societies were made from the get-go, because of these illusions and the way people speak. Man, none of that could be true. People got their own history and got to confess their own at one point. But basically, that's what I was saying about he changed his name to Kazembe, which you stole using Moabite letters to formulate those sounds. Those sounds represent letters. I mean, those letters, those figures represent the sounds that he used to sound that out. So written and spoken, you're using Moorish science. If you're using these letters, if you speak in English, then you speak in either Christian English or Moorish English, which is Moorish English why he's speaking to you. Christian English where he's speaking to you because he don't know what the hell he's saying. Moorish English is why he's speaking to because I know these my letters and I can change them how I want to change them as long as you understand my communication. Then they work. You see that scripture picture here is in a language called Moabite. So that's what we start off with, right? Which is Egyptian, right? The way we show you in the last video. The ancient Egyptian are the Moabites. And the Hamites, which is the Moabites. We became Moabites. Biblically, we're going to do biblical because a whole historical events that connect nations, and we connect them with language and see how they form. Because the Moabite is a language very much like the ancient Hebrew. So I say ancient Hebrew and Paleo Hebrew is Moabite, and it was spoken by the people who live in the country of Moab. And again, at that time, the country of Moab was stretched from modern day Moab to Utah Moab. I mean, ancient Moab and Israel to modern day Moab on that same parallel to the Mojave or the Moabite Desert in America. And the kingdom situated across the Dead Sea from Israel and Judah, which is Utah and California, the land Los Angeles, and the island, the river in the middle, the Rio Bravo, I think that's what they call that river. It used to be a whole sea. Is the Red Sea on the side, Arizona area. Tells us about the victory of Mesha, king of Moab, over one of the descendants of Omri, or Mor, or Mr. Because ain't no vowels written in this language. It's spoken but not written. It can be any vowel at the front. It'll be written like dash, Mr. dash. Because vowels, any different vowels can go there and still give the same meanings or slightly different meanings. King of Israel. The alphabet used is like the one of the Israelite used until the 6th and 4th century BCE. It is the alphabet developed by the Phoenician and adopted by numbers of other peoples, including the Greeks, which became the Latin alphabeta, and that's what we're looking at right now in this form. Coming out of this form, the Moabite. The form that we're looking at and can see right now on the screen, these figures, is known as Latinas alphabeta. And we're going through the italic, which is the Greek stage, and it came out of the Phoenicians, and that came out of ancient Israel, Tarsus. And that came out of ancient Moabite. It came out of ancient Ham and Cush in ancient Egypt, Empire of Egypt. And then go back before that again. We ain't got no beginning. We ain't starting with that protoplasm and fish, and then humans 200,000 years ago, because people are still finding evidence of humans being older than that damn theory. Humans being around, they finding like human tools that go back so millions of years. So they tripping. So they don't put no beginning on nothing. We put a beginning of civilization, the ancient empire of Egypt. We start civilization right there, not man. So again, every time somebody try to play you, most people in the world using your figures to this day, the ancient Moabite figures and numbers. So I'm on both sides of the Atlantic. Got elephants and Tanio Furry again. You gotta give him that props. Gotta give him that props to find that. You got the elephant in the Maya. You see the elephant showing you the Mauryan Empire stretch all the way from side to side. We see the same type of structure in India, the ancient Mauryan Empire. You see right here, that's the West and East Indians on Moors. And then across Africa, we don't just skip Africa and jump straight to India. That's how Spain got you thinking. East and West Indies, the script called Al-Hin, or Mauritania. Basically, before Al-Hin, they were called Marian, having his empire. It became Al-Hin on maps later. So technically, it go right back to Mauritania. And again, I've been saying that shit. We got zoos in almost every so-called country in America, and in each zoo, you got elephants. And they be like, ain't no way they bringing elephants from other places. These elephants that should be here on the land, but they gotta make a new world, so they put them like in cages and say an African elephant. So they call us the Colombian exchange. They gotta make him the leader of everything American. But we see they BSing with that right there. Sugar cane. They get sugar cane cultivation from here. They get a couple of these cultivation from here because Moors already been bringing seeds from different places and planting them different places. We had corn in Andalusia for a long time. But you see right here, that's the point that I want to make a point. You see where they need tobacco, the first one. So many man with the tobacco thing, you try to say that's an African tobacco thing. Like, my man, that right there should show you that Moors been here. Of all the tobacco statues is Moorish peoples, and the tobacco kingdoms where the tobacco and cotton and corn, stuff like that come from, and they connecting you to that Look at that, the turkey. So you got a whole place over there called Turkey, but even the turkey come from the other side. And that's the peppers right here, the Guinea pepper, that they don't want to be coming from here because the record books show that one of the products they were getting early from Moors into Andalusia. Moors were showing up in Portugal, 1200s with pumpkins. Now I say Jeffrey and all those wars between those Moors, the Marinids and Castile and Spain, and all those been early Moors for this trade. On both sides of the Atlantic, vying for this trade. Cocoa bean. Now all these products getting cultivated everywhere, but at a time, it only been cultivated in one place and brought around different places. So more start cultivating it other places. So Colombian exchange. And this is important too, the wheat. The type of wheat we have been rice, and that been basically on the northern climates, a little bit like Spain and again Charleston and stuff like that. But barley, oats, wheat. We got records of us getting that from Andalusia and bringing them to America. the sugar cane, they sneak that in there. That should be on the other side. Because most of the sugar cane fields on this side, you got plenty Rio Duque, which means sweet river, sweet waters. So they naturally grow. You ain't gotta be cultivated. And they always put slaves right there to play you. But again, I ain't showing him again. Tobacco on this side. And they've been smart enough to know sugar cane is really on this side. And they put the Manueta pepper on this Indies because he got Isabel before 1492 bringing in from the Indies while putting West on them, and Portugal bringing in slave Manueta pepper and spices. So even though those is on this land, because everything that's in this latitude gonna have the same products going all the way across. They ain't been talking about this India at that time. They've been talking about America, where they began that Manueta pepper from. They thought calling them Guinea pepper, try to bring from right here, because again, you're supposed to be from Africa, not America. So they messing up the world history to make that true for you. And again, they even whoop around this corner like that. That arrow that point off to this right here, that been the route. They always would have hit right there where the arrow point at before coming right over here. Until the steamboats and better technology, I mean, they could have really whooped that thing with no problem. But the times where they claiming that a lot of these Europeans go in and grab people from that area and bring them over here, they putting arrows from Europe to there, back over to America. And that's the more proper way, right? You see Lisbon head off this course and then head over here. We're back again. If I get a phone call again, I guess they want me to stop right there. But and I break my frame of thought. All right, on this right here, you can see the Portuguese. You can see that white line is the old Castilian line, and how they dealt with the Africa that they've been dealing with. That blue line we see, they ever talk about how they have to hit over here to jump over here. And always because of trade winds. But you see how on this side also, those same trade routes that we've been seeing in the ancient Ethiopia, ancient Somalia kingdoms. Or what Queen of Sheba would talk about in that video. The trade routes they knew, and America got whole parts of it dealing with the same things. And again, tobacco, one of the major things that America been known for having. So those European tobacco statue makers, even though we didn't know if all them shit making Europe, right in Virginia, but just assuming that, still I know where the people where I look over here. I am calling it Africa. Let me see. trade, but it's your early Europeans in North Virginia. Did them all right there. And they collect these tobacco barrels of tobacco, I assume. Getting ready for trade. And you see these harbors been created specifically as harbors in the ancient times. A place like a house ships and for trade. These people right here, you see our whites and blacks and jeans, they going to pick tobacco in Virginia. And when they register them for that plantation, their origin gonna be from Africa. They gonna be baptized, born in a church from Africa. And the European, he gonna be from England. Even though ain't none of them people been nowhere but here. That's how the colonies were dealing with international law. Remember, the United States they were recognized as its own thing until 1787. So everything got to be called something, and they call foreign things that we consider foreign now: Portuguese, Spanish, French, England, Africa. Another depiction of that same event. You see how they write about it. Virginia Province of Maryland. You see malls out there and serving. After this amount of time, I'll take your industry and but the people who do the work started saying just that they just take the seat. It's like right now they sit in the seat of power. And that means they got power over you. They just sit in the seat of power. You got a Governor Scott. And you live on a colony and you work. This is what they owe you. They owe you for unpaid labor. You see commissioners for trade and plantations. They're lordships. They got lords who over lordships. And those lords work for, they praise their allegiance to a higher lord who pays their allegiance to an even higher lord, which would be like a sultan or emperor. You know, dealing with tobacco, see the leaves. That's to show them you're going to find most of the tobacco thing dealing with America. You ain't going to find too much of the tobacco thing dealing with Africa. So that is a good evidence piece of tool that Moors can use here for their presence and their historical. Put that in your timeline. When you make your own timeline for historical events, make sure you add the tobacco, Virginia Tobacco Company, and what was going on at that time, because your presence here. You see, like this. You had to know how to do the work, because they take, there's people that know how to cultivate the land. They know, like my man, like Benjamin Banneker, he write the almanac. He had no when to plant, when to harvest time, and all those different sciences based off the climate. And it take science to do that, because you're dealing with hundreds of years of data that you put in the almanac. So you know, even when the comments will come back around and stuff like that. I don't think this tobacco look like they're doing something else. But as you can see, workforces, literally called enslavement. But at the end of the day, you working, you doing what you've been doing, you're just doing it for Rome instead of yourself now. And they beating you up in the process. They would have whooped one of these guys when you were running it. You probably had different ways of punishments. Like right now, you got punishments if you do certain things on these municipalities. You get punished, and they put your ass in a cell. That's punishment. The only thing now, you got labor laws that they can't beat the employees no more, but they ain't had those laws back then. Tobacco farming. Man, right there doing the pointing in this one. Like I said, they'll take your industry from you. And a lot of time it'll be Moors and their families and their members of their family and friends who do the cultivating, and people will come right around and take a picture and see a bunch of Moors out there with bushels of carton of tobacco, and they all capture that shit. Slaves picking cotton. Man on the whole farm, and that's his family. They ain't want to hire foreigners. They ain't want to hire slaves to do the work. So they do the work. Not everybody going to the slave market to hire servants. They just use the family, and they don't make big families for that reason sometimes. Stuff like those, you see. Sugar cane. And all these pictures is already in America. You see me in America. There's the overseer. You see. Sugar mills. Production. You see the programs. Probably learning how to do all that shit. And all the sugar cane purchase and the tobacco and the cotton purchase always be American. They always showing you Moors who at that industry. And then the record books calling them Hindios and natives. And these people not come back around and make themselves okay, we'll be slaves now, since that's what the record books calling it. They calling it natives, and they calling it now, so they going back and put themselves as even the workers, because they know that's what we know, because we going through these documents and these records, and we know that they calling these the early Spaniards calling them Indios and Ikiwamienda systems, which is slavery, but the pictures don't reflect the Indians that they want us to know, but this picture do. They make it out of their way, except for main man back there, must one. They must one in this figure. But they slick though, because they try to make yellowish looking people as if these people look sick. That's what they look like. They try to mix them out, Spaniards and natives. They ain't get Africans yet. That's what they want you to think when they do stuff like this. And what they did is take another picture and reconstruct it in our face. This one right here, the original picture. And they redraw them, and then they put that on their website and in their books and your children's school books and shit. So you gotta redraw the shit first. So then they ain't even care. They even take your role as a so-called slave, because they know this ain't really slavery as they put it. It's an old system that been already running, and people think when they take over the system, that's when you can call it slavery, because they start mistreating the people, not paying, doing all the crazy shit, sending them other places to go work because they know how to do these things. So they would sell him to Charleston and say, yeah, he's a good sugar cane worker or whatever they need him for. He's a good sailor, a cook, or thing like that. That's what the little advertisement was saying. So they started doing that to these people. But the history books go back and they make them from here. They don't talk about going to Africa and getting Africans and bringing them there. They talking about going to places close by, but they mostly talk about how the early records showed that they been collecting the taxes from the indigenous people who were already here working on these things. And they drew these little type of pictures. So these people who say that, remember my man, you say that they've been who helped the Africans fight against enslavement. The natives who helped the African fight against enslavement. But right here, you show you one who working right here. If you want to claim that this the picture. So either way, either you been a slave working yourself, and either worry about yourself and not us, or you ain't even been around. If this picture real, you ain't been around. You ain't got nothing to do with this. These is the natives who you calling African slaves. Or if you want to go with us, then you been a slave. You write your own roots. Make your own movie called Roots. And let me see it in the movie theater. You know what I'm saying? With your own people playing the parts as the slaves. So you can take one of the two. And both of them already did you in. Because you can't take these ones unless you lighten them up and change it. Because these the old stories where the people like my man, people like them write about when they find these people here. And they call them Indians and natives. So now they won't do this because they know that these people shouldn't be in this picture. One of the earliest paintings of these sugarcane plantations and shit. Another one, Enlightened. And I see this painting plenty of time. And they take the black and white version of them and repaint it. Knowing these boys that I got afros like crazy. And gold mines of Mina. They want all that story to apply to them because it's so early in the game. So the Europeans going over there and write about the products that they get from here, and they write about what they see, and they see Mo's working. And you know, this man right there look like he got his own tobacco farm and his own thing. He drying tobacco and then selling it in a shop. And you see this the cigar. That's the man who make the cigar factory thing. He know about my man right here in Virginia already. He know about my man. He ain't stupid. He know he ain't no overseas. No way. He right here with him. That's the system. They smoking them on the colony. And the natives, the tobacco, the old tobacco kings who still there, but who ain't want to be part of all the what they call them Maroons or Indians or natives who away from the colony doing their own old thing. Sir Walter Raleigh, snuff taking, and the tobacco flowers. The boy right about all this shit. They ain't be confused. Plenty of pictures like this showing you who been tobacco gangs and the planters and the planters. You see the cotton industry booming. You see, you got Europeans and you have Moors. It's like you got today. Every industry Moors getting paid from, and Europeans. the most illustrious industries. You got Moors who own it. Because go look up the richest people on the planet. You got Moors and Christians. You got just a bunch of Europeans. Some of the richest people on the planet still Moors. So don't let them people give your children one side of these things, because they trying to play with their spirit. They'll show you and cut out man back then. Them two dudes right there who say right there, just like my man in the suit. We're gonna assume that my man right there ran the whole operation, because our subconscious made it that way to assume these things. But if I gonna make an assumption, me and man right here is the boss. Man in the middle, he the boss, and everybody else managing. I'm gonna say our still Indians. He gonna skip all these pictures to make us meme, because these the African ones, right? He tons of these. And he ain't gonna use this budget because he had to use a lighter one. That's what lightest one he could have find. Probably spend an hour and a half trying to find that shit too. And I see somebody post this in that group, and it had every time you post anything on Facebook and use the word more inside one of these groups, you're gonna get hundreds of comments, because like that's like the unspoken word that shall not be spoken out of our words today. But I read the comments and I see a lot of misunderstanding from Moorish Americans, a lot of people who call themselves that, but so-called blacks and African Americans in this group. And they were like, yeah, they can't touch him. I'm like, no, don't think like that, because they gotta bust his head wide open right there in that street right there, and just deal with the consequence later. But make your statement saying could not touch him erroneous, because they could if they want to. They're humans. They're humans wearing a uniform with a title that we call police. They ain't been born with that title. They have to go sign up to something. You gotta know what these things is as origin, or you'll be saying things like this man showed his Moorish flag and cops could not touch him. They could touch him if they wanted to. They choose not to that day. For whatever reasons they got. And look, you got the Moorish police right there. He don't even know what the hell going on. These people ain't even know what my man be talking about half the time. They're humans, just like everybody else. You get up and go to work, you want to use a cashier, all right? You want the easiest day as possible, and that means you want everything to just go smoothly. You don't want nothing to change. So these people who call themselves police, they don't want nothing to change either. They want to go get out of their bed and go back in their bed at the end of the day with no problems. So a lot of these should be technicalities, but I ain't saying my man ain't right and you shouldn't stand on them. We should be standing on these things in mass. It's just a mind state. Don't think that just because you did that you can't be touched. That's ridiculous to even think that way. Like, they got hands, right? If they got hands, they can touch you. They can touch my man. Like, like it's some magic. Like, they put this flag out, boom, oh, I disappear. Like, come on, we gotta be real with ourselves. What he been saying proper and right, and by law, it'll be illegal for them to proceed in the way they're proceeding. Once he already not show his papers on the highways and byways. What's even more deeper than what he's saying is we should be the ones who sitting on the side with uniform, checking people's papers. That's in the treaty. More supposed to be checking people's papers over here. But that's even deeper than what he been saying. So he's saying, so you get even deeper, man, right, and everything and all this been right. And all the people out there who amen and all that, yeah, you need to be captivated by somebody who got their own flag and got their own understanding on this land and look like you. But as I want to point that out, because Rome would do stuff like this. They'll write statements like this and make these memes for you, like them white chess players. and knowing the erroneous way to think like this. A flag just showing international agreements, and that international agreements a rules of engagement between the two parties, meaning a man in the car and the United States citizen or person. The United States person is him, her, and everybody else who been out there who ain't claiming their own nationality, they United States persons, and between him and any United States person, they ain't gotta be one in a uniform who call themselves a cop. When y'all talk to each other, y'all dealing between nations, called international, inter between natio nations. So it's engagement between nations. How y'all agree with how y'all engage each other is written plainly in a treaty of peace of friendship, which is the law of the land. So that's what he's talking about. But people seen that video and they inflating things. And then when and if they had this happen to them now, the multitude, oh, so that flag ain't work, more stuff ain't work. But at the same time, again, they can touch him. Regardless if he right or wrong. After they touch him, he still ain't make him wrong or something ain't work. So they're saying so gotta start thinking in those ambiguous ways. Say color man, free or slave, mulatto or Swati blacks are also totally excluded from the teaching of the first letters, the alphabet, by express disposition of the authorities. And that's always because a Rome against Moors at all times. And if you live in a Roman Christian colony or whatever, if you in that, you're gonna deal with black codes, and that's what they were dealing with too in Buenos Aires. That's from that same book, and you already know how they talk. The order in this regard on May 8th, 1723, to the teacher Alonso Pacheco, again Pacheco's again, that he should not teach them to read, write, or count. He is only authorized by keeping them separate. You see, that's the main ideology around the way that they keep control, separation mentally, to give them notions of religion. So a lot of the times they would just leave the ones who already know who they is to themselves and try to excommunicate them in their own little area, and they'll just teach the ones who don't know about themselves, which would be the multitude of the masses, to go against those people, i.e. the Moors. And the all the other groups that they're not breaking into different groups. That's basically religions. They keep them separated, so they beat one up, the rest of them ain't gonna fight. Cause all the rest of them gonna do just point and say, we told you it's our way or the highway. So the one who get beat up, the rest of his people are gonna point the finger at him. They gonna feed him to wrong, cause they already not separate themselves, and they all think their way is the way. So that's how wrong do it. Pluck them off one by one. So, and he adds that he does not take them out of the public acts, and these are public acts. You got Moors who private throughout this whole time, right? These same places, but away from the Spaniards, the Ladinos, so that they don't get together. So you got the dark-skinned Ladino ones who know a little bit more about themselves because they still speaking Spanish and still living in around areas, but they don't want them around these blacks. Generally speaking, the provision endures for a few years after 1810 and is only slowly weakened. In 1823, the Benevolent Society ordered the creation of a school for colored children, separated until that moment from the teachers of the first letters. In 1833, that and other school functioned in different neighborhoods of Buenos Aires. And we know it exists of another installed in 1855 in North Cathedral. Later reports indicate that due to lack of funds, they had to be closed. In 1877, the dark-skinned people, and again, it's the most respectful way of the whole book, to this whole book that they speak of you. Because if you don't know these people, we're using things like them, or they, or these people. That means you, as a person who writing from an outside point of view, you ain't saying we, right? You're saying they. So you're talking about other people. So if you don't know these people, if they ain't your people, then just use terms like dark-skinned people. Don't try to give them an adjectival term like dark-skinned people into one term like Africans, because you calling them that as a noun. Just use an adjective, dark-skinned people. Don't use a noun that you use it as an adjective, but it perceived to be a noun, a name of a thing. Causing confusion, but that's the most out of this whole book, that they gonna give respect to me. I accept that. Buenos Aires. We estimate their population to be approximately 6,000 souls. Requested the creation of a school for the descendants of the ancient Africans. So that's another time throughout the whole book that they understand that these Africans from Africa that's ancient and over here that's scratched over here. But although the teachings of the first letters forbidden to them in the colonial times, many masters, which you know, most likely been their own people, because just like up here today, your leaders look like you, but they still under Roman customs. So these masters, especially religious congregations, preachers, pastors, politicians, and pastors, black politicians and black pastors. That's what they're talking about. They're the same all over the continent. Teach slaves to play an instrument. So you see, they don't want you learning the letters, science, language, government, because they know as Moors that been your thing, and you been a shit at it. So again, they ain't even comfortable of you bullying your nation to yourself without anything from them, because they know a lot of their own people. They have so many renegades. You read these stories, they nothing but renegades everywhere in Morocco and around the Moorish kingdoms. And the renegades are Christians who ran to Morocco because they tired of Rome ass. We call them renegades, and Christians call them renegades, like traitor. So if we bullying cities and towns here, it'll be so many Europeans who would rather be governed under us than their own people. That's why they get beat up on January 6th. They tired of Rome. You know what I'm saying? So they'll rather live in our shit. Like, yeah, they go over there because they got constitutional rights. They got good governments over there. But that's what's going on. So again, it's like in our school, when I've been younger, we had economics in elementary school. We had economic books. We had different books. And then I see later, they don't teach none of them shit to them children no more. Or even in this small amount of time period, they still taking away different lessons and stuff. But that only goes to show we're seeing our kids to Roman schools and but our own one in the forest like we used to. Even if we got to go back to the forest, we still got a choice. Either we can deal with wrong like we doing now, but learn how to see through it, know your thyself, or we gonna suffer under it. Send them to their schools and their teachings and their curriculums. So even if they got a so-called black teacher, you gotta come from their curriculum. Yolanga, this brave Moor, resisted the Corsairs with as much gallantry as the natural Spaniard. You know, in this original documents, he's a Moor, and he actually used the term like Moro and Moro. It's Portuguese, Spanish, the English call him Moor, M-O-O-R-E. Everybody just call these people Moors. These people who reading these stories literally taking that word And when they write it to you, they put Negro or black or African. But you notice in the time when the wars between Moors, Christians, and all that waging, right? The Corsairs, the Corsairs is some more shit, with as much gallantry as natural Spaniard. Even going as far as to kill Drake's nephew, Rodolfo Drake. Sir Francis Drake, he killed his nephew. And the work of the Lope de Vega. Lope de Vega recounted this episode in his La Dragontia. But critics attributed it to the fertile poetic imagination of the Phoenix. You see? The modern day people going to say this, he been imagining stuff. Even though he writing you old Moorish American history, plain and simple, but the terms they using in those little texts, they like, why are you talking about stuff like this? This is not Morocco. That's what they gonna say when they read the old text from Lope de Vega and shit. But they assume, those who assuming, they say since the documentary ever was discovered, that reveals the historical existence. So ain't no goddamn imagination of Pedro Yolanga. In the royal certificate of the Royal Court of Panama, after the events carried out by Pedro Yolanga, so you see, that's where we get our records from as nobles. We ain't care about no authors like these authors who writing this. We go straight to the royal court and get the royal certificate and stuff for ourselves and see about these historical events like they doing. After the events carried out by Pedro Yolanga, Sotomayor is asked to reward the fidelity of this Moor. He been on the side of Spain against Spain and England were fighting at this time. And they both had Moors allies and Moorish enemies too. Releasing him for the service rendered to the king of Spain against the English invaders. It's like right now, if we go to war with Brazil, you can have Moors in both military and Europeans in both militaries who go do the fighting. They released him for the services rendered to the king of Spain against the English invaders. And releasing him just means giving him Indian status on the colony. That's what Moors who been down with Spain get. And they get different laws applied to them than the other Moors who getting black codes put on them. On the part of Pedro Yolanga, a slave from the city of Moor from the city of Nombre de Dios, wherever they name them. The Moors had their own name. Nombre de Dios was one of Columbus' first registrations, so I have been told that last year, 1,596, 1596, when the English army from the charge of Francis Drake, went to it, it was pointed out, and he served a lot on that occasion and killed an Englishman who was said to be a sergeant major of the said army. And these people who write in this book, you can tell they just mix with Spaniards and shit because they got a hatred for the English. And you can see that throughout this book. They hate the English still to this day. So them Argentinians who got that Spanish blood down there trying to act like they native. Still got that ancient English hate, who was said to be Sergeant Major of the said army and prevented them from drinking water from the Rio del Facto and the Del Carrillo. So basically, this man and his Moors and his army and his military doing all the work now against this English. Carried out ambushes in the mountain and other errands for this purposes. It has been verified by certain reports that is presented in my Council of the Indies. And you see, the Council of the Indies been ruled by these Moors eventually. They started ruling the Council of the Indies on this side. Foregoing so that others other nations are encouraged to serve in whatever it is offered. So they were offering more Moors like, come join us, the Spaniards, in the fight against the English. Order to order that he has said city giving him freedom. And again, anything he can be, change his status to a higher status than Negro now. And and that by that reason, the absence from it has been sold him as ransom be paid from my hacienda. So you see the hacienda systems. Keep it on the hacienda systems like we on the municipality system. And because it is fair that this be done, and that he be honored and favored in what is allowed, I write to the council of the said city my letter, what will go with this. So those will be go when we research this for ourselves. We get those letters and stuff. We tell them hand it over Panama. They want all information dealing with Yolanga, Pedro Yolanga, who was rewarded for his loyalty. And again, here we go with the Spaniard. He was a black and a slave. They act like they just didn't say that a million times already. Like, right? They just like, and then you wonder why he be ready to skip no read none of these shit, because you can see in it that they just got a hatred for you. But with his good nature, he knew that it was better to serve the Spaniard than the heartless Englishman. And then in the English stories of Francis Drake, he's saying the same thing. He's saying we got some Summerons with us, and they fighting against the evil Spanish who enslaved them, and we will help them. Who their false promises wanted to attract the Moorish population of America as auxiliary troops, and their invasion plans, and they were taking Spanish ports and shit. He was a Moor in Rome by his service to the King of Spain did not go unnoticed. So you see that make more sense now, right? Because you know Moors in Spain and the Spanish in that war. So the fact that he was one and they started working together is what they trying to make point of. But he's a black and a slave, but he down with the King of Spain. He ain't going to dinner with the King of Spain. We can't even go even get a good look at our Lord, the King of Spain. And he going to have dinner with the King of Spain. What's going on? This black slave. And you see, other of his nation would be encouraged to serve, and they were giving them Indian status on their colonies. These Moors who work with them. And that's when the word Summerun started coming around. So you see all these maroon towns who stole around the day they're using local treaties. They can use international treaties or national treaties that can cover the whole continent, all the people on the cover. But all the people on the cover ain't in their right mind, so I don't blame them just using the treaty that they can use, the local ones that they use with Britain and live out. But trying to galvanize this whole continent, you have your own people telling them don't go fight against you. So I don't blame them. Use the local ones, just like the native tribes, they use the local ones instead of the national one, the international ones that we got. As Moorish Americans, we don't play with Rome. We include the whole continent, all the Moors, not just our little tribe that we got around here. Because we got plenty of things that we can use too, that we did with Charles II and those early colonists. We got stuff like that we can use too, like the Maroons in Jamaica using, the Moors in Jamaica. They're using local treaties that they did with England. Here we got a lot of those stuff too that we can use too. We talking about all. And we're using the treaty of peace of friendship, which is international. In 1596, the famous Francis Drake, we say famous because he has more fame than success, you see. These modern day Argentinian Spaniards still head on English. And his Corsair career, so they call him a Corsair too, a pirate, sighted the shores of Tierra Firme, Venezuela, Colombia. Came with the powerful army of pirates. You see, they hating on them boys. English piracy had crossed the Atlantic after failing in the Canary Islands. Basically, after failing to taking some of the encomiendas of Jamaica, Haiti, the Caribbean islands, then known as the Canary Islands. Then they go on to Venezuela and Colombia to try to take some. So that's what they say right there, even if they know that or not. Because ain't no stories about England dealing with that canary over there. It's just this one. The eager for gold under the pretext for serving her Arch Majesty Elizabeth I of England. The plan was not only to work as hard as possible, but also to deal a mortal blow to the strategic position of the Spanish Empire in the Indies. So they always try to make them look like they crossed from the Canaries. Now they've been in the Caribbeans, and then they hit the mainland, Tierra Firme, the firm land. Apparently, the Moors were being smuggled in from, not into, but from Brazil, with the possibility that those who brought him had entered the soil of the Banda Oriental with more Moors as captives or slaves. And the Banda Oriental is the eastern part of the South American continent. In other words, the Brazilian Portuguese traffickers transported Moors to the Banda Oriental, also by land. So you see, now he also, but the whole time of me 11 years in these Christian slave camps called educational school system, public school systems, they only teach us about the sea across the Atlantic. They ain't teach us about no localized trades. So if they leave one thing out, they hiding a whole lot of things. They leave that out, don't take nothing from these people. If they don't tell you both sides or everything, they don't take no words for them. See, and not only by sea from Rio Grande, Santa Catarina, and or Rio de Janeiro to Maldonado, Montevideo, and or Colonial de Sacramento, and even to Buenos Aires. So all these trades going on between, even if they'll get on ships right here, they'll just go to another port further out the coast. That's what happened on both sides too, in Africa too. People getting shipped around Africa. People in Africa getting shipped around Africa. And on the ledger say slaves from Africa. They get sold from one hockey in the system to another hockey in the system in Africa on the same land. And the cargo says slaves from Africa. All the cargo and the contraband, the paperwork, if they had paperwork, because sometimes they've been hiding the paperwork so they would have to pay the taxes on the property, known as slaves. When they did, they say slaves from Africa, it ain't matter if they bring them from, like they say in this. They figured this out after research, these people right here. And they put this at the end of the book after you know, try to make you come from Africa the whole time. They throw this at the end of the book, of course. And we come from that little city right there and going across the water on that city, that little short ride. The cargo ship was going to be slaves from Africa, no matter where you at. Just like this book. The authors who they always call dark-skinned people African. It don't matter where they at. Archaeologists can find an Africoid skull anywhere in the world. That skull will be Africoid. He ain't got to be found in Africa to be Africoid. So you'll take that same energy. African slave and boleadores. The moles of the Rio de Plata were not as sedentary and docile as it often repeated in many history books, including Y'all, one, throughout the book. In slight ways, like I stupid. A large portion of them sought their families' freedoms at all times. And every time we come to them sought any freedom, it was just freedom of the structure of government. Some people ain't never will leave that place. Even when they're free, they stay in that place. Like my man Yolanda, he just say, don't play me with the black codes. And no records, these people say, oh, we're free now, let's get on the boat and go back. Even if they've been sailors, they still ain't even going back, quote unquote. The back that we go on is back to South America. That's what most of the North American Moors did. So I know that. You can read on that in a second. If this had been up in the case, the existence of such a large number of orders and ordinance, proclamations and announcements and other government instructions tending throughout the colony period to maintain a tight control over the Rio, Afro-Rio Platins can hardly be understood. Yeah, because you're writing about other people. How about you worry about yourself and let us worry about our own shit? We'll help you understand later. You can't understand. But these are things you get: ordinance, orders, proclamations, announcements. Those are things you get. Real history, you get the documents written in those times, the receipts. That's what a receipt is, a record, because the date on a receipt. And of 200, 300 years from now, that date still will be on that receipt. That's a true document. That's a record from the time period of the recording of that record. Not rewritten again over and over. And we almost finished. We'll stop after this. This can be a long read, but it's going to be very interesting. Again, more stuff conveniently left out of our history. They ain't even talking about stuff like this on February for you. You gotta go research to find these events. So that's the researchers of Buenos Aires, and they find in these documents. So they find the United States is preparing once again from South America if this Greek present is accepted. So this ain't the first time the United States did this, what these people saying. Further on, the same article from Diario La Prensa say that a North American black, so that's you now, named William J. Smith had traveled to Buenos Aires and Pampa lands to be colonized. So he going out there looking for some place to colonize more in North America. Showing you the back and forth. And a lot of these Moors in North America, again, they showing you us, some of the Moors from South America. And some of the North American Moors down there. We start to get stuck in our respective places because of the wars. And then later, been trying to go back and forth. They'll try to go back home, knowing we've been from a different part of America. People like William J. Smith, which you know that name's a name like that. He been most likely Muhammad something, but in the English colony, William J. Smith will help him get through. See, and I just like how our elders used to say, "So name your daughters Shaniqua, she can't find a job." Because your grandma know in these English colonies, the name basically connect to how the influence of the place is. So we've been taking these English names just for those reasons, because the influence of the place. They're also transcribing a note from the New York Times: colonies of South America. The blacks are the Moors of the South, enthusiastic about the idea, Topeka, Kansas, January 27, 1888. And you know they always do this like they do today. Speak for all us now. Act like they could speak for all us. These, you know, you're still in the class system. They call it the upper class blacks, the middle class blacks, and the low poverty. the poverty backs, right? The hood. So they act like the upper class ones, the Black Caucus, they act like they speak for all the boys in the several states, and that's been like that in January, in 1888. The prophet 2 years old, so he ain't come check them people yet. So they slow, and that's the mind state that we've been in before that time. So the movement initiated by the Negro or the blacks or the Moors to colonize some parts of South America. So they've been going all over South America looking for different places to colonize, like Liberia. They were just calling these things back to African because they galvanizing all the Christian blacks on the land, which was the South. And just like today, the word Africa, people get an emotional reaction to it. So even back then, they been using that, brothers, we going back to the motherland and get away from the racist white man. So they use that propaganda. Next thing you know, them boys, they've been doing business with the same crackers, and they've been looking for workers, free labor some way, and people to build up a colony some way. And they ain't gonna tell you all that. They're gonna tell you in this way. They're gonna write out, brothers, we going back to the brotherland. We need young, strong brothers and sisters. So you see the same states that is our states, particularly, especially in this time, most of the politicians in these states been Moors. Go look it up. The majority been you in politics since before they start sending out the Klan to disenfranchise you out of government. But just a main reason the only thing we really talk about is talking about reparations. That been one of the biggest crime. You disenfranchise people out of their government, and then after that, create lobby with codes of the colonies and enforce that against these people for convict leasing. And these people ain't got no representation because you disenfranchise them out the government and give them false representations, illusions of representations. So any mandate, anything that these people pass, you ain't got no representation in the office, in the quorum, to say, hold up, stop that. So if they pass something and if against you and your people, they're gonna assume that they disenfranchise you, so you ain't got no representation. So how that's supposed to work? Like, I'm one of the main things that need to be talked about. So the movement, so they calling it movements, but Moors been doing this. Europeans, Portugal, Spain, right? Setting up colonies, right, across the world. The same thing you doing right now. South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, from where most of the settlers will go. Now, mind you, on the ground here, these pastors and these people who get in the galvanizing the crowd, they talking about back to Africa movement, but in reality, they already finding plots in Argentina. They say the New York Times itself mentioned that the proposal for mass immigration of ex-slaves of African origin from Kansas to South America had already been approved. So you see, ex-slaves from Africa origin from Kansas to South America. So people in South America like, wait, if there's an back to Africa movement, why are you saying them down here? Because these people who doing this organizing and running this shit, the black and the whites, they Freemasons, and they know that Africa is everything's 20 from Florida on down to Peru, and no matter what side. They didn't know that at that time. Definitely. And they know now in the secret societies, but the geopolitical seen creating itself now to be that continent over there being known as Africa only. Well, the movement began 3 years ago, so they find out in 1888 from newspapers that this been going on, and they already been going on for 3 years before they even find out. So 1885, by in a secret way, and the fact has only been made known to the public in recent times, while it was definitely organized. They said these people planned this shit on us. The New York Times itself mentioned the purse of, they already said that, and had already been approved by the Secretary of State of Kansas, so they already approving that. And the promoter of the migratory project was the North American League of Immigration to Central and South America. So they already had a league on where they're going to ship Moors to. Because you already know now the Christian clandestine Europeans already now take over D.C. So their main goal is manifest destiny to make a country for themselves. So they get rid of as much Moors as possible. Especially the ones who ain't want to be their black slaves. They help bullet the United States under with their foot on their neck. With their foot on our neck. So they definitely will get rid of those ones they call maroons, who upset the plantation. But again, Argentina, Benueris find the story. This should say the North American League of Immigration to Central and South America, they've been planning on saying that all of back to that came part of Africa at first. This also goes to show you that these people ain't got your best interest in mind. They try to act like they try to teach you about your ancestry and all that shit. Now, you just want me away from here. You will see them ask to Alaska, if you would call that Africa. Yeah, go to Africa. As long as you're away from here, is the point. Now, peep game. This commercial company was made up of rich and prominent Moors from Kansas and the southern states. So this company ain't even no Europeans. You Christian blacks, and they know that they were from different parts of this empire back then on the side. Said half of them boy probably been stole from, probably still had houses and families stole in the empires of Brazil and all those ancient Moorish empires, and back then in North America at the time. But all those 3 books, they got African ancestry. Say, where John Brown, former sheriff in the state of Mississippi, like I say, we pretty much been running these states until we get to the Klan, terrorize our politicians. S.M. Wynn, the banker, B.F. Watson, the Protestant minister. So you got the pastor, you got the politician, we got the economic man, he the banker, William Anderson, S.G. Watson, J.P. Berry, Philip Pickett, William Freeman, and many others. And you know they have Europeans, Romans with them too. It's like NAACP. That's who they've been, the early version of that. According to the same newspaper, the original capital contributed was $2 million in 1888. They probably been gold too, of which an important part had already been invested in the migration progress. So you know they've been doing this shit, and they had Argentina on their side. They had Moors from down, Moors and Christians from down there on that side too. One of the main objectives of the company was to populate some regions of the Argentine Republic, for which some concessions have already been authorized by the Argentine authorities. According to the article in the newspaper, La Prensa, the President of the United States has said that it means of transports were found, he could gather 300,000 of us from the south to embark in search of new homes. So you see they've been making these claims, knowing goddamn well, again, you ain't getting that old lady off that porch. and she gonna make sure her people don't fall for that trick. So you see, you got to battle us here, who like, hey, we ain't going nowhere. You got to battle us, hey, let's go somewhere else, set up settlements. And it said from the south to embark in search of new homes. And it is assumed that from September 1st, 1888, 1,000 blacks will be ready to go to the Argentine Republic. And that's why you see the flag of the Seminole and the Muskogee and the Creek flags and all that in Cundinamarca, because they were going back and forth like that, these so-called blacks of the South, wealthy, connected like that. It's been a continental Congress, but you see 1880s, they already getting to the point where everybody story changing and they getting stuck between borders of these countries now, instead of being like how we've been in our mind, the whole continent in one place. So Argentina is how they dealt with it. They say, arguing that this massive immigration of Moors would seize the wealth of the Argentine territory, displacing the whites. They would be naturalized as Argentine citizens, and since the United States had given them a political education, the United States ain't given that. These Moors had that. They just been a little roaming with the way they did it. There were 300,000 voters. You see, they looking at that as voters, not people. They're looking at that as people who are going to have political power, will not have a job in seizing the reins of the government, appointing our magistrates, turning us into a republic in which the element of the Moorish element is in the majority, and of which the others will be able to say, this is Morocco now. Which has already been Mauritania. Like, that's so crazy that about this. Argentina came out of Mauritania, land of Moors. That's why some of the Moors up here might have choose that. Like, that been ours. Like, what the fuck wrong with these people? You see, later on, the correspondent adds, we do not need to make our race ugly. So you see, you got the racist Spaniard, Argentinian, who responded, but he worried about being mixing up the race of Argentinians, that they flying it and they shipping it themselves. And the large figures of statistics of immigration had to be white and predominantly Catholic Romans. Adding to the United States was permitting this action of mass transfer of these Moors to South America to get rid of them. So that's what they were saying. Like, United States, y'all slick with that back to Africa. Should I try to act like y'all helping these people? Y'all just trying to get rid of them. Y'all know that ain't y'all land. You want banning ship. You want banning ship, and they want you to ban this ship. So they're gonna help you. They'll fund you back to African movements. Definitely will fund that shit. But I don't think they'll do that now. I don't think they know, they understand now that, damn, we probably wouldn't have this great United States of America today if it for these people who bully every goddamn thing. And all the advancement and the contribute, everybody contribute to what we got today. So, but the contribute went massive on our part to make this the place everybody won't come rushing to today. Like right now, Ghana been trying to get us. Ghana want us because of our spending power. He separate out with these people, these Moors in North America. I bet you Argentina would have wished. If Argentina, I bet you the Argentinian government probably wished they did take 300,000. I was saying, the way we make the United States come in military and entertainment and everything else as a model to the rest of the world, will follow that. Even though these same Moors in the South, who they ain't accept to come through, with some going, some actually does go settle, but if they get that much, then they would have been the ones who everybody would have been looking towards to come to. We attract all these people for some strange reason. Then he says the Chinese too. The blacks, the yellows. Keep that same energy. If you ain't gonna give them a proper name, there ain't nobody get a proper name until you speak properly. So the blacks, the yellows, and the Romans, three things look at from afar. The Eastern Romans been the socialists, and the Western Romans been beefing with them. That's a whole other story though. And three things to look at from afar. So you see, he only about sending people to somewhere afar, and that's Africa. Is ambiguous. Now our statement worry about worsening our own race unceremoniously. So that'll be it for this. There's something to chew on. There's just one event right here. And I'm pretty sure a lot of these wealthy ones are going to get big beach houses down there in Dead Settle and stuff like that. But this happened more here on this continent. Us going moving around back and forth than the Liberia thing. That's been just one of the events that's similar to this one. And I even been the same company that initiated that one. I've been a different company. This company right here called, that they'll never talk about, the North American League of Immigration to Central South America company. This commercial company is made up of us. I believe they never teach us about that. What they did is though, they probably now draw modern day European looking paintings under these Moors names. That's what they did. Because they got these high status in early America when they shouldn't, according to their narrative. But that goes without, that's a whole other investigation too. So we should be done with this. Let me see. Yeah, let's read this and then it'll be done. The Berber folk tales. And they got a lot of Moors and Berber folk tales in South America because of course you're coming out the old world. And they catch stuff like this. They say throughout the Berber plate colonial period and the beginning of the independent era, trade relations between what the Spanish called La Barbary and the Rio de la Plata were not very intense, nor were they excessively important. So that's what they see and saying. It was very intense and important. And there was, however, a curious indirect relation between the Barbary and the Cabildo of Buenos toward the end of the 18th century. So you see how late it is. The Crown of Spain once again asked the Spanish council, city councils in America to send money to rescue the Spanish captives of the Moors. So Spain was still doing some of the old shit that these people who over here, who Spanish city councils in America, they Argentinian councils, they ain't even, they trying to separate themselves from Spain now. So they looking at these documents coming from modern day Spain, like this, like in the 1800s. They still be getting documents saying stuff about Moors and Spaniards. And like, hold up, we got blacks and whites here. We got Argentinians, Afro-Argentinians here now. Why y'all keep talking about these Moors? Because the Spanish still been going by some of the old way, showing you that they been calling the people over here Moors. The residents and the neighbors of Buenos Aires reacted angrily to this new extraction of the metropolis. So they've still been collecting their tax that they've been collecting. Like, hold up, when y'all become Argentina? Cause last I checked, I've been collecting 5% from this area. In effect, the city council did the rejection expression that without a doubt the king was unaware that in this province there are also Christians who are in the hands of Indians. So you see, it make more sense to them that Christians who captured by Indians now than Spaniards captured by Moors, because time changing and the words changing. You see, 1887. And that's a person who writing about Berber folk tales, he called folk tales now because it's of the new world. That is the truth. You're dealing with the old empire. So even to the later, Spain started messing out, saying it using the wrong terms. Here to make more sense, the African slaves, the African Maroons, I say Maroons, that to make more sense to them. Or Indians, like they say down here. And that's what the Spanish know. And it continues to this day with through tradition. Like we got carnivals and stuff that keep our history intact. They still got them too. And literally showing you blackface, show you that we call these people black today, but that's who they is. People with the turbans on and stuff. I start Chris on that thing. I always say Spain ambassadors either holler at me or let me get one of them beach houses just for the summer, as a summer house to go and visit. If they want to honor me like this, you can deal with the real day again. And you like that nostalgic. So, let's start right there. We continue. We got some more to go. We got a nice little bit to go. Alright, anyway, peace till next time.